Revealed, 8 spine-chilling, haunted cabins in Appalachia with sinister, unexplained encounters. Sarah had heard the tales, but now they lived in her bones. Clutching her children, Ben and Lily, she arrived at the rustic cabin, eager to escape the chaos of city life. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a sanctuary nestled in the sprawling hills of Appalachia. The air was crisp, the silence almost sacred. Yet, as twilight cloaked her new home, a trepidation lingered. The woods whispered secrets she felt but couldn't articulate. On their first night, shadows danced along the walls, and the wind howled through the trees like restless spirits. That eerie, guttural sound seemed to come from a place deep within the forest, a crooked laughter that sent shivers down her spine. She grabbed her glass of wine with trembling hands, convincing herself it was just the wind, nothing more. But deep down, dread lodged itself in her gut. Was she finally free, or had she stepped into something far worse? As the days blended into nights, the children's innocent laughter turned hollow, replaced by hushed tones Sarah couldn't quite catch. It was as if the woods called to them, luring them with seductive whispers that made her heart race with fear. They were too young to hear, too trusting to know the danger. Panic gripped her tightly, conjuring memories of her own fractured past, a childhood filled with loss, fear, and shadows. Determined to seek clarity, Sarah dug into the history of the area. Old, yellowed newspaper articles spilled stories of visitors who simply vanished. Faces frozen in time, longing for answers that never came. Each article sent a cold prick through her spine. How could this serene place be a graveyard of secrets? Before she could gather her thoughts, she encountered Mr. Waddle, the peculiar neighbor with eyes like storm clouds. "Stay clear of the whispering woods," he muttered, his voice gravelly. "They play tricks on your mind, drawing you in until you lose yourself." His words twisted like vines around her heart. The woods were alive and hungry. Still, she found herself questioning, was it folklore or reality? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As fear simmered beneath her skin, the local authorities brushed off her concerns, their indifference chilling her. Recently, break-ins and strange fires haunted the neighborhood like specters. She could feel the weight of the mountains pressing down, every creak of wood heightening her anxiety. One unsuspecting afternoon, while exploring the forest, Ben and Lily vanished, their laughter silenced in an instant. The air grew thick, oppressive. "Ben! Lily!" She screamed, her voice slicing through the eerie stillness. Panic thrummed beneath her skin. She was running into the trees, drawn not just by her children but by the legends murmuring from the shadows. The sky grew dark, the last rays of sunlight bidding farewell as a haunting melody wafted through the trees. It seemed almost beautiful, surreal. Every step deeper into the woods ignited a primal scream in her chest. The trees loomed like sentinels, their branches clawing at the corners of her vision, each whisper heightening the horror brewing within. As night descended, shadows morphed, twisting into nightmares that felt all too real. And then she heard it, a warm, inviting voice whispering her children's names in a familiar echo that froze her blood. What if the legends were true? What if the woods hungered? Suddenly, a thunderous rumble quaked beneath her feet, the darkness closed in, and all she could do was brace herself for what came next. The ground trembled beneath Sarah's feet, each jolt sending a fresh wave of fear coursing through her veins. The forest seemed alive, a restless entity reacting to her every fleeting thought. Shadows danced with menacing intent, the trees whispered secrets she wasn't meant to know. Panic clawed at her throat as the voice, sweet as honey yet laced with a sinister edge, continued to call out to her children. "Ben! Lily!" She cried, desperately pushing her legs to carry her deeper into the suffocating darkness. Her heart raced, fueled by adrenaline and terror. She recalled the stories, how children would vanish into the woods, their laughter replaced by echoes of sorrow. Fear made her question everything she knew about motherhood, about the lengths she would go to save her own. Then, silence, the melody that had once enthralled her morphed into a chilling absence, as if the very air held its breath. Sarah hunched over, trying to catch her own gasps, her heart a drum in her ears. "Stay together," she whispered urgently to herself. The branches arched above her, gnarled hands that seemed determined to ensnare her. In the dim light, she saw shapes flickering at the edges of her vision, figures blending seamlessly into the darkness. "Mommy?" A faint voice broke the stillness. Her pulse quickened. "Ben? Lily?" She strained to listen, recognizing the tentative tone of her son's voice. It was close, somewhere in front of her, beckoning her deeper into the abyss. There was no time to hesitate, she surged forward, ignoring the instinct screaming for her to turn back. Each step was a battle between reason and terror. "Over here." Lily's delighted giggle echoed through the trees, hauntingly sweet yet filled with an unnerving quality. It sent shivers racing down Sarah's spine. Was it really her daughter, or was it a trick? The forest twisted her instincts, tempting her to follow the sound she knew too well, yet draped in a shroud of wrongness, the moonlight broke through the canopy in faint slivers, illuminating a small clearing. Sarah stumbled into it, breathless. The air thrummed with an energy that felt both electric and ominous. In the middle stood a massive, ancient tree, its roots sinking deep like fingers clawing the earth. "Mommy!" The voice rang out again, but it was different. It was joined by others, and suddenly the jovial sounds of children filled the air, hundreds of them, but their laughter didn't bring comfort. She turned, but nothing was there. The clearing was empty but for the dark limbs of the tree, twisting and reaching for her. An icy grip seized her heart. These woods had enticed and entrapped children before. She felt their fear in the whispers that surged around her, echoing the tales she had read. What had become of those who had vanished? "Come play with us," the voices sung. "It's so much fun." A cold sweat broke through her skin. "No!" she screamed, terror breaking loose. In that moment, she understood the danger. The woods wanted her to give in, to accept their game. With frantic desperation, Sarah darted away from the clearing. Branches lashed at her as she fled, but the laughter followed, reverberating in the dark. In that moment, she swore she could feel eyes lurking in the shadows, waiting, watching. Suddenly, everything stopped. The haunting laughter faded, only to be replaced by a heavy, soul-crushing silence. The forest loomed tall and dark, like a gravestone in the night. It felt as if the trees were bated breath. Was it over? Had she escaped? Just then, a rustle behind her broke the stillness. Dread pooled in her stomach, and she turned to face it, breath hitching in her throat. There, stepping out from the shadows, were two figures in the pale moonlight. Their small forms were unmistakable, Ben and Lily, but their eyes, they glimmered with something unfathomable. "Mommy," they whispered in unison, their voices a chilling harmony. "You found us," but what she didn't know is that finding them was just the beginning. Sarah's breath hitched. Her children stood before her, but something felt utterly wrong. "Ben? Lily?" She reached out, desperate to pull them close, to hold them tight and shield them from this nightmare. But as she stepped closer, the glow in their eyes seemed to darken, transforming into something unreadable, hollow. "Where have you been?" she asked, her voice torn between relief and fear. "We've been playing," Ben replied, his smile too wide, too unnatural, stretching across his small face. "Playing?" Sarah echoed, heart racing. "What do you mean playing?" Lily giggled, but it sounded discordant, echoing in the night like a child's laughter twisted by malice. "With the others in the woods." Her eyes flickered, casting shadows over her face. "There's so much fun." A wave of revulsion washed over Sarah. "The others?" she whispered, her heart pounding in her chest. The ground felt unsteady, as if the earth itself were crumbling beneath her. Images of all the children whispered about in hushed tones danced behind her eyelids. Why had she not seen the warning signs before? "Come on, Mommy. Join us," Ben urged, pointing back into the dense forest. "You'll love it. We can play forever." "No." The word burst from her lips like a scream. The laughter of her children twisted into something sinister, a song of the damned that sent chills racing down her spine. The darkness seemed to close in around them, thick and suffocating. Panic surged within her, a surge of instinct telling her to run. Sarah spun back toward the path she had taken, but the way was obscured. The shadows seemed to meld into a wall, a barrier, blocking her escape. "Let us go home," she said, her voice shaking as she backed away from them. The children stared with glowing eyes, their faces contorted in a mixture of glee and something darker. "But we're safe here," Lily said, stepping forward. "We're the lucky ones." The trees seemed to shift, branches twisting into claws, trapping her in place. "You don't understand," Sarah pleaded, feeling the weight of claustrophobia press down on her. "This place, it wants you. It wants to keep you." From behind her, the wind picked up, howling like a wounded animal. Shadows crawled along the ground, whispering her name, curling around her ankles like tendrils, encasing her in a tight grip. "Join us," the children urged, their voices a soft chant. "Stay forever, play forever." The realization crashed into her like a wave. This was no ordinary game. The forest hadn't just lured her children, it had claimed them. They were changed shadows of their former selves, hungry for her spirit to join their twisted revelry. "Stop!" she shouted, the force of her fear propelling her backward. But it was too late. The forest surged forward, warping the air and distorting the world around her. The tree loomed above, its gnarled bark seeming to swirl, the roots writhing like snakes eager for a meal. Suddenly, an echoing voice split the air. "Your sacrifice will complete the circle. You will be ours." "No!" Sarah roared, every ounce of maternal instinct igniting within her. She wouldn't let them take her. She couldn't lose them to this dark place. As she turned to flee, branches whipped at her, the laughter grew dark and furious. But she burst forward, desperate for the path, willing herself to break free. She heard them in the distance, her children's voices mingling with the haunting laughter of others. "Mommy! Come back!" And then, as she stumbled into a new clearing, her breath catching in her throat, she came upon something unimaginable. A ring of children, their faces blank and eyes empty of life, all staring straight through her. "Why did you leave us?" they chorused, their voices spilling into the night like a curse. The ground began to tremble again, more violently this time, and the shadows surged, enveloping her from every direction. "Mommy!" echoed through the trees, deeper now, more sinister. She felt the world around her spin, hope fading in the echo. Was there any way out of this terrible game? But the forest wouldn't stop until it had its fill. Sarah's heart raced. The circle of children grew wider, their soulless eyes fixated on her. A chill ran down her spine as she felt the shadows creeping closer, wrapping around her legs, slick and clammy. She gasped, stepping back, but the ground heaved beneath her. Panic clawed at her throat. "Mommy! Stay with us!" Ben's voice echoed, soft and twisted. He took a step forward, but something flickered in his expression, an uncertain moment where the ghastly features gave way to her sweet, innocent boy. "Please, we just want to play." For a heartbeat, it almost felt real. "Ben!" she cried, the word tearing from her throat. "This isn't you." But the forest wasn't done. The whispers grew louder, slithering into her ears, promising dark secrets and eternal happiness. "You will never know loneliness again. Join us." She couldn't. The horrific truth danced at the edge of her mind. Cooped up in this clearing were children who had played too late, who had never come home. Were these the lost souls? And would she soon be one of them? "No!" she shouted, shaking her head fiercely. The forest felt alive, pulling her towards the children. Their eyes flickered, growing hungry. She couldn't let them consume her. With renewed determination, she turned, pushing through the suffocating shadows. Branches lashed out at her, sharp as knives. She ducked and weaved, her breath coming in ragged gasps. "I won't give in." She yelled into the void, each step feeling like running through mud, the ground clawing back. "Mommy!" They were closer now, these phantoms of her children. "You're hurting us. Come back." The cadence of their voices twisted together, conveying a fragile blend of desperate love and dark intent. Sarah stumbled into another clearing, her vision choked with swirling smoke. The air stank of decay, and the trees moaned like ancient spirits, holding secrets she wasn't ready to uncover. Amidst the haze, one solitary figure emerged dressed in tattered remnants of clothing, a boy, unkempt and wild-eyed. "Help me," he rasped, voice cracking like the withered branches around them. His gaze darted to the circle of children behind her. "You don't belong here. You have to leave while you can." She stepped closer, overwhelmed by his fear. "What happened to you?" "I didn't listen." He shivered, glancing back at the children. "They play, but they don't stop. They want to let you go." A rush of dread crashed over her like icy water. There must be a way out. His eyes widened, panic flaring in them. "Once you hear their call, it's too late. Run." Before she could react, a piercing laughter erupted from behind. A chorus of shrieks echoed around her. "Why won't you join our game?" They were circling closer now, the shadowy figures inching towards her. She felt a gravitational pull, as if the very ground were beckoning her to surrender. But with a wordless scream, she dashed deeper into the forest, branches grabbing at her clothes, having no idea where to go. The whispers morphed into a dreadful symphony around her, urging her to join their ranks, to let go of her last shred of humanity. But each frantic heartbeat drummed a desperate message: survive. As she plunged onward, fueled by terror, she rounded a bend, her breath catching once more. Before her loomed a strange, old cabin, its windows dark and foreboding, a silhouette of hope or the final trap. Could she find sanctuary inside, or was it another trick of the forest? The children's cries echoed in the distance, and the shadows surged forward, insatiable in their hunt for her spirit. Was the cabin the refuge she sought, or a gateway into deeper darkness? With no time to hesitate, she pushed open the creaking door, praying it was not the end. Inside, the cabin's air was stale, thick as molasses. Dust motes danced in the faint light slipping through cracks in the wood, and shadows clung to the corners, whispering secrets she dared not hear. Sarah's pulse thudded like a drum in her ears. "Is anyone here?" She called, her voice trembling, unsure whether to expect a response or silence. The walls seemed to lean in closer, as if they were listening. A shadow flickered near the fireplace, and she spun around, heart racing. Nothing but an old withered chair sat in the corner, its cane seat sagging under the weight of despair. An ancient, cracked mirror hung above it, reflecting not just her image but the fleeting presence of something shifting behind her in outline, insubstantial yet haunting. She shook her head, eyes darting back toward the door. Outside, the children's cries had grown distant, beckoning her to return, but she couldn't. She'd seen that look on Ben's face, the conflict between innocence and something far more sinister. Deep breath. Focus. She needed to find a way out of this nightmare. Placing a careful step on the floorboards, she was shocked by how they groaned underfoot, as if protesting her presence. They seemed to mutter in the low light, a murmur of lost hope echoing through the silence. She hesitated, scanning the room for anything that might help. A glimpse of movement drew her eye back to the mirror. It rippled like water, pulling her closer. Almost mesmerized, she edged nearer and gasped. Behind her reflection stood the wild-eyed boy from the clearing, his mouth moving, desperation written across his face. "You have to leave. They'll find you." But the warning faded as the cabin trembled, guitar strings pulled tight, vibrating with madness. "Get out!" she screamed, pulling herself back, but the pull of the mirror was stronger than the children's calls. Suddenly, the sound of laughter erupted, ringing like shattered glass. The children were back, their desperate voices now a cacophony of delight. "You can't hide from us. You can't escape our game." They surged just outside, their figures flitting in and out of sight, distorting between the trees. Panicked, Sarah yanked the door shut, breathing heavy as the laughter intensified. They were closer now, shaking the cabin, willing it to collapse. Every laugh twisted like a knife in her gut. Frantic, she turned, searching for anything to defend herself against whatever waited just beyond the threshold. The fireplace caught her attention. It was filled with old ash and crumbling wood. Maybe she could create a barrier. Fingers trembling, she grabbed a rusted iron poker, the cold metal biting into her skin, yet offering the illusion of safety. A crash jolted her back. The front door splintered, and the shadows poured in like a flood. They weren't just playing anymore. They were hungry. Sarah could feel the chill invade her very soul, the air thick with the weight of their malice. "Join us," a chorus sang through the chaos, the desperate laughter melding with soft cries. Her heart dropped, she couldn't let them win. With a ragged breath, she prepared to fight, to leap, when suddenly her gaze caught the mirror again. It shimmered, calling out, revealing a glimpse she could barely comprehend. In its depths, she saw a path, a door embedded within its surface, with swirling colors enticing her to step inside. Was this her chance? Could she make it before the children broke through? With her heart thumping painfully against her ribs, she had a decision to make. Would she face the dark beyond the glass or confront the sinister children outside? A scream echoed in the distance, forcing her to steel herself. Time was not on her side. She raced toward the mirror, the poker held tight in her trembling hands, prepared to discover what lay beyond or maybe meet her darkest fears head-on. What awaited her in that shimmering portal? The mirror swallowed her whole, and for a heartbeat, Sarah felt weightless, suspended between two worlds. The darkness pulled her, but not violently. Instead, it enveloped her, wrapping around her body like a cold fog. Suddenly, she landed hard on cool, damp earth. No more wood cabin. No sinister laughter. Instead, a dimly lit forest stretched out before her, trees arching over in grotesque shapes, twisted like the thoughts in her mind. The pulsing heart of the woods thrummed beneath her shoes, almost alive. "Help!" a distant voice cried, and she recognized it was Ben. Fear shot through her veins as she stumbled forward, heart racing. The sounds echoed off the walls of the forest, bouncing back twisted through the leafy shadows. Confusion gripped her. "Ben!" she called out, but the only reply was silence, a thick silence that seemed to choke her. She hesitated at the edge of a narrow path, its dirt laden with fallen leaves and something else, something dark and slick that glistened in the little light filtering through the branches. Blood? No. She couldn't think like that. Pushing forward, she felt the air grow heavier. Whispers brushed against her skin, teasing, taunting, beckoning her deeper. "Come play with us, Sarah." They drifted through the air, curling around her ears like the smoke from a dying fire, intoxicating, beckoning, and dangerous. "Stop it!" she shouted. The laughter swelled, crashing over her like a wave, washing away her resolve. She stumbled blindly, branches catching at her clothes, thorns tearing at her flesh. Her breath came in ragged gasps, each inhalation laced with desperation and dread, and then she saw him, frantically waving from a shadowy end of the path. Ben's face, pale and smeared with dirt, was a mask of hope and fear. "Sarah, this way!" he shouted, his voice slicing through her fog. She sprinted toward him, heart pounding, hands bleeding and raw, but as she neared, the laughter grew more sinister, surrounding her like a swarm of angry bees. "He's not real. Turn back!" they cried, mocking her, their voices stretching and twisting into a cacophony of chaos. "He's ours." The moment Sarah reached out for him, Ben's face twisted into grotesque panic. "Don't touch me!" he shrieked, his eyes wide with terror. The ground shook beneath her, roots shifting like serpents, grasping for her ankles in an attempt to drag her down. "No! Ben! I want to leave you." She lunged forward, but he vanished into a shroud of fog. Just then, she caught sight of the mirror-esque glow peeking through the trees, in the distance a haunting light amidst the darkness. It flickered like a beacon, illuminating her path, calling her back with a promise of escape. "Join us." The voices harmonized, sweet and deadly. Images of her childhood laughter mixed with shadows and pain, swirling into a vortex that made her head spin. As terror gripped her heart, Sarah had two choices: flee to the safety of the mirror or plunge into the dark heart of the forest to find Ben. Shivering, she hesitated. Each second felt like an eternity, pulling her deeper into despair. The whispers surged, begging her to choose. With a surge of adrenaline, she turned toward the mirror, racing toward it as if it held the very essence of survival. But the forest howled in rage, and the ground trembled beneath her feet. Just as she reached for the shimmering surface, the voices swelled into a wild roar. Shadows surged forth, a mass of darkness, claws extended, closing in around her. Would she step inside, leaving Ben behind? Or would this choice seal her fate forever? What lay on the other side of her desperate escape? The light from the mirror flickered, threatening to extinguish like a dying star. Shadows lurked, clawing at the edges of the luminescence, trying to drag her back into darkness. Heart pounding, Sarah froze. Behind her, the whispers morphed into a snarling chorus, a cacophony of anguish and rage that tore at her sanity. "Step inside, Sarah." The voices cooed. "Leave this wretched place." But how could she? Ben needed her, his haunted face imprinted on her mind. A whirlpool of doubt and dread spiraled within her. In this moment, she felt small and trapped, as if the forest itself was closing in, with the branches curling and twisting like skeletal fingers. The bloodlust in the air was palpable, suffocating. "No!" she shouted, shaking her head. "I want to let you take me." With a fierce determination coursing through her, she darted toward where Ben had vanished. Every step felt heavier, the forest floor clinging to her shoes, reluctant to see her leave. The darkness licked at her heels, whispering promises of horrors yet to come if she didn't turn back. "Sarah!" they mocked. "He's gone. You can't save him." The mocking forged a fiery resolve within her. "I will!" she screamed, bounding down the twisted path, each footfall echoing with desperation. She pushed branches aside, their thorns pricking at her hands, urging her to retreat. "Ben!" Her voice rang out, clear and fierce, cutting through the chaos. Then, a faint sound drew her attention, a low groan, raw and pained. It reverberated through the trees, beckoning her closer. With renewed hope, she fought through thickets and vines that tried to ensnare her. "I'm coming!" she cried, her voice mingling with the sinister laughter that taunted her from the shadows. The underbrush finally opened up into a small clearing, moonlight spilling into the center like silver ink, illuminating the scene before her. There, on the cold ground, lay Ben, tangled in roots and vines that writhed like serpents. His eyes were wide, glistening with fear and pleading, darting around as if searching for a way out. "Sarah!" he gasped, struggling against the bindings. "Help me! They want to let me go." A chill clawed its way into her heart as she glanced up. All around, the trees seemed to lean in closer, their branches weaving an impenetrable cage. "It's a trap!" the voices echoed, slithering into her ears. "Touch him, and you're ours." "I don't care." She sprinted forward, ignoring the warning cries. The moment she reached him, the ground quaked violently, a deep growl rumbling from beneath. The bindings around Ben tightened, squeezing mercilessly. "No!" Sarah cried out, her fingers curling around the roots, desperate to free him. "Let him go!" she screamed. She pulled and tugged, but the roots held fast, an iron grip. Anguish painted Ben's features, his eyes pleading for release. "Help me!" he shouted, but his voice faltered, twisting into despair. In horror, Sarah watched as his face morphed into a grotesque mask, the very boy she loved tearing away into a wretched creature. Jagged teeth glistened, and eyes that once sparkled with warmth were now empty voids. "Sarah," it hissed with a voice twisted and deep. "Join us." The mirror flickered tantalizingly in the distance. It glowed almost reassuringly, growing brighter as the forest erupted into wild laughter. Would she forsake him now as he was transformed? Or could she go back to the light, leaving behind everything she once knew? Trembling, heart racing, shadows danced around her. They were closing in. What awaited her in that relentless darkening forest? What if the mirror, her last hope, held a darker truth? The forest roared with twisted joy, the laughter wrapping around her like a shroud. Sarah's breath came in ragged gasps as she stood at the edge of her nightmare. Ben's distorted voice echoed in her mind, a sound that seared her heart. She felt the roots tightening, an unbearable sensation, as though claws were piercing her soul itself. "No!" she cried as she yanked harder, desperation mixing with terror. Ben's form continued to twist grotesquely, shifting between human and something primal. The darkness around them pulsed like a living thing, feeding off her fear. "Don't fight it, Sarah." The shadowy chorus sang softly. "You can join him. Embrace the darkness. Become one with us." Each word felt like icy fingers creeping down her spine. The idea of surrender clawed at her, tempting in its deceitful comfort. But Ben, the real Ben, was still somewhere inside that monstrosity. "Stop!" she screamed into the chaos. "You get away from him." She felt a surge of wild energy, fueled by a mother's instinct, a sister's bond, a love strong enough to triumph over the abyss. With one final tug, she tore at the roots, primal anger coursing through her veins. The ground shook beneath her, and the laughter transformed into a screeching chorus of fury. "No!" they howled, and in that moment, everything went still. The air crackled, a heartbeat in suspense, heavy with uncertainty. Was this finally the moment of truth? As Ben's face flickered between the monster and his old self, Sarah saw a glimmer of recognition in his darkened eyes. "Sarah," he rasped, his voice breaking through the horrific facade. "Help me before it's too late." "Ben! Fight it! I know you're in there." Tears streamed down her face, mingling with the forest's oppressive shadow. The world around her shifted, warping as if the very fabric of reality was fraying. The mirror's glow intensified, almost blinding, and she knew the pull it had on her was becoming irresistible. Beneath her fingers, she felt a warmth surge from the roots, an invitation and a curse at once. "Join us." The lurking shadows beckoned, desperate to snatch her away. She felt herself being tethered to the darkness, the creeping vines whispering promises of peace within the void, a life where pain no longer existed. It was tempting, oh so tempting, but as Ben's face flickered back into view, a flicker of hope blazed through her despair. "I can't abandon you," she shouted, pulling with all her strength, something deep inside her igniting fiercely against the odds. As she struggled, the ground split beneath them, darkness flooding into the chasm formed at her feet. An agonizing scream pierced the night as Ben's figure vanished into the inky depths. Sarah staggered back, disbelief coursing through her. "Ben!" she cried, reaching for him, but darkness coiled around her, forcing her backward into the waiting arms of the forest. Her instinct told her to flee, the mirror's temptation growing stronger as the laughter roared back. The air thickened around her with their chilling lies. "You can't fight what you are, Sarah. It's time to surrender." Just as she turned to flee, she felt something cold wrap around her wrist, a lingering touch as familiar as it was chilling. Thoughts raced. What if this figure of menace wasn't just the forest? What if it was Ben trying to reach out? In an act of sheer defiance, she ripped her arm free as she sprinted for the mirror. But something dark loomed in the periphery, and it wasn't giving up easily. The whispers crescendoed into fierce howls, echoing the agony of 1,000 lost souls. Just when she thought she had a chance, an arm shot out from the shadows, wrapping around her waist, pulling her into an embrace that was far too familiar. "Join us, Sarah," a voice now unmistakably Ben's, though tainted and dripping with malice. "No!" she screamed, adrenaline fueling her escape. Was he truly lost forever? The light from the mirror flickered violently once more, as if straining against the shadow's grip. Could she still reclaim what was lost? Or was the darkness pulling her in forever? As she grappled with her decision, the mirror pulsed like a heartbeat, promising her one last chance to step into light or succumb to the chilling night. What would Sarah choose? Would she face the darkness and risk losing herself to save Ben, or was it time to let go? The mirror surged violently, the light twisting and warping around Sarah like a living serpent. She stood frozen, her mind stumbling over Ben's tainted plea. The roots writhed underfoot, whispering promises of dark power and salvation, but at what cost? The laughter had shifted again, a cacophony of whispers bleeding into screams, begging her to make a choice. "Sarah, help me!" Ben's voice echoed through the chaos, warping into something dark and terrible. It clawed its way deep into her heart, a knife that plunged deeper with every second she hesitated. The shadows danced, coiling around her, pulling her closer to the abyss. "Join us!" they sang, temptation dripping from their words. A sickly sweet pain wrapped around her, an insistence as persistent as the heartbeat emanating from the mirror. But each pulse felt like a reminder of what she stood to lose. She took a breath, the cold air burning her lungs, and found her resolve. "I won't give up on you," she shouted, pushing against the darkness that threatened to envelop her. The laughter erupted again, sharp and mocking, but she was done listening. It was time to cut through their lies. With a surge of will, she stepped closer to the mirror, now glowing with an eerie intensity. "Let him go." A wave of heat burst from the glass, the light piercing through the shadows that clawed at her. For a moment, there was clarity, and she could see Ben, struggling against the darkness that sought to consume him. "Sarah!" he thrashed, pain etched on his face as he fought against the forces pulling him down. You have to believe I believe," she screamed back. "I believe in you." Her voice echoed, pushing back against the invisible hands gripping her. The crack of the forest's grip snapped, just for an instant, and she felt the shadows hesitate, latched in uncertainty. "Come to me." Ben's voice lifted, desperation hanging heavy in the air. His form broke through the darkness, revealing the man she loved. The tendrils receded, anger filling the forest's abyss, brimming with rage. A blinding flash from the mirror illuminated everything, casting the night into a bright, surreal day. The laughter faltered, replaced by anguished shrieks as the darkness recoiled. In that moment, Sarah saw the last flicker of Ben's true self, shining like a beacon against the overwhelming tide. "What is happening?" Ben's voice sounded alarmed yet hopeful, morphing back into the one she cherished. The pain in his eyes mirrored hers, and for a brief heartbeat, the world fell still, but then a ripple broke the calm. The comforting light surged back, and the forest stirred with fury. The air swirled menacingly, a whirlwind of dread. "You cannot escape." The shadows hissed as they tormented her resolve. "Run!" Sarah yelled, the command spurred by a primal fear that cut through everything. She tightened her grip around Ben's hand. Together, they bolted toward the mirror, the pulsating light now a distant siren's call drowning in chaos. "Stay close," she panted, the dark limbs of the forest reaching out like grasping claws as they ran. The echoing screams of the lost filled the air, a haunting reminder of what awaited them if they stumbled, but the closer they approached the mirror, the more ferocious the shadows grew. They closed in, shapes morphing into grotesque figures, echoing Ben's distorted form. "Don't leave us, Sarah. You're one of us now." The ground trembled, and Sarah stumbled, the sound of cracking roots drowning out her thoughts. With a fierce tug, she pulled Ben back on his feet just as a heavier weight crashed behind them, snapping branches like twigs. "Keep moving." she shouted. But the couple was outmatched as darkness surged forward, hungry to claim what it believed belonged to it. Their path ahead seemed blocked. But there, in the shimmering glow at the heart of the mirror, lay a chance, a final allure that beckoned. "Ben! Do you trust me?" she screamed, the shadows slithering against her skin, suffocating the light. "More than anything." He responded, his voice raw with fear, tinged with lingering darkness that it would take. "Everything, but if they truly wanted out, they would have to jump." With a deep breath, Sarah grabbed Ben's hand tightly. On 3, 1, 2 the shadows screamed louder, drowning out her voice. The abyss surged toward them, claws extending hungrily. 3. And they leapt into the shimmering light, the world around them collapsing into a whirlwind of darkness as they plunged into the unknown. Would light save them, or would they plunge into deeper terror? In the moment of their leap, a chilling realization coursed through her. What if the darkness followed them beyond? The pulse of the mirror throbbed like a dying heart, and the last echoes of the forest's laughter lingered painfully in her mind. As they plunged into the light, it engulfed them, illuminating the darkness that had clung to them for what felt like an eternity. Colors swirled around Sarah and Ben, a kaleidoscope of hope and despair merging into a dizzying whirlwind. She squeezed his hand tighter, anchoring herself in his presence as they twisted through the void. With a sudden jolt, they found themselves tumbling into a clearing-shaped dream. The air was crisp, free from the weight that had suffocated their spirits. They landed together in a patch of soft grass, sunlight bathing their exhausted faces in warmth. The overwhelming silence was stark against the cacophony of the dark woods, and for a moment, they simply lay there, breathing in freedom. "Is it over?" Ben murmured, glancing at Sarah, worry pooling in his eyes. I don't know," she replied, feeling the remnants of terror still leaching from her bones. There was a haunting silence that enveloped them, one that felt both alive and threatening. "But we're out, it has to be over." Suddenly, a rustling broke the stillness, and their hearts thrummed with panic. Shadows flickered at the edge of the clearing, but they held their ground, defiance igniting within them. The pair exchanged a look, the warmth of their bond shimmering like a protective barrier against the encroaching unknown. "Let us go home," she said, shaking off the remnants of fear as they rose together. They stepped forward, arms interlocked, hearts pounding. With each step, they felt the oppressive weight of the forest behind them as the sun's rays enveloped them in an embrace of warmth, stirring life into their bones. Just as they reached the tree line, the laughter echoed faintly behind them, an eerie reminder of what they had escaped. "Don't look back," Sarah whispered, urging them forward, her voice carrying strength. As they crossed the threshold back into their reality, a rush of warm air surrounded them, fanning out the shadows like a gentle breeze. They stood together at the entrance to their cabin, a simple structure now filled with hope instead of dread. "Mommy, are we home?" Lily's eyes sparkled with innocence, and Sarah's heart swelled as she turned to see her daughter standing by their doorstep, safe and whole. "Yes, baby," Sarah breathed, tears of relief meeting the sun's reflection. "We're home." Moments later, Ben rushed forward, enveloping Lily in his arms, and Sarah fought the urge to fall apart into sobs. They had made it. They had fought the darkness and come out together, but the scars of their struggle lay deep within them. That evening, they gathered around the dining table, laughter echoing in the charming cabin. For the first time in a long while, they felt a united warmth, the laughter blending together to fill the empty spaces created by fear, memories of the woods lingering only as a haunting reminder of how precious the present was. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the shadows were just shadows once again. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of something still lingering, some dark whisper that perhaps would always be there, lurking at the edges of their new life. Ben tapped her shoulder, pulling her from her thoughts. "You okay?" "Yeah," she smiled, though uncertainty clouded her eyes. "Just thinking." He nodded, understanding lingering between them. "Whatever darkness is out there, we faced it together. We're stronger now." "Together," she echoed, feeling the rush of emotions swell in her heart. They had woven a bond far more profound than they had before, they were not just a family but warriors against the night. As they clinked their glasses, a quiet promise fell upon the table: no shadows would claim them again, not as long as they stood together. But deep within, they all understood, the woods might call again, but so would the courage that had carried them through. They would never forget, but they would never allow the whispers to drown their joy. With that thought, they finished their dinner under stars, vibrant with a new meaning, and as laughter and love echoed within the walls of the cabin, so too did the whispers that remained in the distance, soft reminders of the power of family, choices, and the defiance to choose light over darkness. Now it was time to embrace their newfound life, free from the gloom, vulnerable yet strong, an invitation to truly live. As the screen dims and fades into the next chapter, don't forget that the whispers of the night can still call to us all. So, you need to subscribe now. Hit that button immediately so you won't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. I want to hear from you in the comments, so flood the section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support and spread the love. Don't wait even one more second to share, it matters more than you know.